you mentioned about, are there other amenities nearby? Is that so we're close to West Hannay, Grove, Wantage, a couple of other villages nearby that have all got, good village halls, I think, well used. Is that likely to be a potential blocker to us receiving funding or even applying for funding, where we're going to struggle to demonstrate some of these things that would make an application a good application, because we don't have, multiple
the backing
groups
of the community,
or the backing of the community. I mean, we would hope to, over the course of the next few weeks and months, sort of turn that local support round by, I think, probably doing wider, more broader surveying and possibly house to house and getting people's views and increasing the support for it. But we don't have a large network of community groups that do or would use the hall. But things might change. That's the whole point of us trying to do it, I think.
Yes, I mean, as Nicole has just mentioned in the chat, it is, the strong community backing is the draw for funders. So,
and also I think it is about building communities, isn't it? It's about it's starting from probably quite a different place. If you've got no groups, no engagement, you're starting at the beginning, really. And maybe that's, something we can support you with, about engaging the community. It's about getting some sense of energy going, isn't it? And excitement and buy-in to the community itself. Sorry, Nicole, was you going to say something there?
No, I was just saying that a lot of the grant applications, one of the key criteria that you might have to meet is building a strong community. And you've really got, to my mind, a very strong argument that we need to build a strong community, and we will be building a strong community, but we need money to help this happen.
Yeah, really good point, Nicole. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to hear, because what I was kind of fearful of hearing was that, no, if you've got sort of good, strong amenities just 2 miles down the road, the answer is going to be, well, you don't need a village hall, you can just go to Hannay.
Well, I mean, if that 2 miles is on
anti-community, I would have thought.
Yes, well, if that 2 miles is down a long winding road and people can't drive, elderly, and you'll still find ways of proving that you need it.
Sure.
Especially if the interest is dissipated because of the troubles around the hall. So once that is settled, if there's if you feel that there's a chance to get the community together again over it. It just might be, as Lisa says, starting from sort of almost, from a base and building it really.
And maybe the question is, if there was a good, if you go out and do consultation, if there was a good community amenity in this village, would you use it? What would you like to see? Do you think it would regenerate the community and get that energy going again? Catherine's been very encouraging, saying about Finstock Hall that was completely rebuilt in 2016. So it is possible, but I don't know, Catherine. I mean, this is where sort of peer support, I don't know whether you'd be willing to sort of share some of the learning from Finstock with James and Susan at another space time, because it sounds like you've been through the process.
Not me personally, but
but maybe somebody
was led by somebody in the village who really just made it all happen.
Right.
We had an old gloving factory that was really kind of interesting, but it also was really smelly and damp and cold and unpleasant, but it was a kind of iconic building, and the whole thing went. Literally the whole building went, and I think it cost about 3,500 to rebuild it, which seemed incredible to me at the time, because it's a smart building. It's it's got all central locking and well insulated and beautiful. It's beautiful, wooden sprung floors, and they just made it so beautiful that people wanted then to come in and use it. And we're a village of 700 people, and a very mixed community. not very well used at all until it was rebuilt, and then people started to come towards it because it was just such an attractive space to be in. And so, you know, that's the value added, isn't it? It's the risk you take to make the project happen in order to attract the community. So it's been a huge win for our village, massive. And I can put you in touch with the guy who spearheaded that operation for sure. Yeah.
I'll contact you, Catherine, and I'll arrange a, you know, as a meeting, an online meeting to share people's experiences. Right, where are we, Lisa?
We're cracking on with, has anybody, before we start the second half, has anybody got any questions so far? Or are we happy to keep going? Okay, so Tessa, if you could share the second half.
Resume. Oh. No. I can hear someone whirring. Don't know what that is. That's better. Oh, sorry. Okay. So things like planning permission and architect's fees are not always eligible for from some funders. However, money has been raised by crowdfunding or paid by the parish council, or could the money come out of reserves? You may be able to attract pledges if you have made sure that the community know what you are trying to fundraise to make your asset fit for future generations. Is it a well-loved and well-used venue? Will appeal to all users who might fundraise and donate. For instance, the Bridge Club in Blueberry Village Hall and all the clubs did their own bit of fundraising and donated bits of money. And they said that, you know, nothing is too small to add, especially when it comes to showing the funders that how many different groups have been raising money alongside you. So be clear, it says at the bottom here, be clear what funds you need, but don't assume that all costs will be covered. So if you don't get the full amount of funding you're after, is there a plan B? You may have to downscale. And this has happened, you know, a few times, especially now when funding is quite it's competitive. I've recently been working with a hall that applied to the Platinum Jubilee Fund, and they were, this is a bit of a juggle, as you know, fundraising. They were sort of counting on the big lottery to provide the rest of the funding, and that would mean that they would be eligible for the Platinum Jubilee Fund. But the big lottery it takes a long time. There's a two-stage process. And they weren't going to get the funding in time, but they had fundraised in the community, and so they had their 80% of funding from community fundraising, which they could use when they halved their project. So they've done it in 2 stages, and so now they can get the Platinum Jubilee Fund using the fundraising they had already, and then the big lottery will fund stage 2. So that was a bit of a juggle, but it's worked out in the end.
Yeah, Nicole makes a good point about gift aid. You know, if you're a charity, you can register with the HMRC so that any pledges or donations you can get, you can ask people if they are willing to gift aid, and then that gives you, is it another 20% gift aid.
25
25
pence in every pound.
25. So yeah, actually
in our little bit of
25%.
fundraising, it currently represents 10%.
Yeah, so that it's worth doing, basically, you know, if you can.
So here are some examples of some loans. Loans can be used to, well, the Public Works Loan Board, loan through the parish council, you know, could be used to kickstart your project. There are quite a few funders who are only, you know, fund the last 20% or some such amount. And so you need to have, you know, a lot of the money up front. It can be, the parish council can apply for this for the hall, but annual loan repayments need to be worked out, and a consultation will have to happen in the community about increasing the council tax precept to help with the low paying repayments. So this is, you know, subject to how the community feel about their hall and whether they want their precept to go up. The Acre Buildings Loan Fund for communities of 10,000 and under, so rural communities, can provide a new hall, or it can be for refurbishments. The interest rate changes daily and depends on the length of the term, on the length of the term of the loan. The rate will be fixed at the rate on the day the loan is issued, and will remain for the whole term at that fixed rate. Often used to bridge a gap if you have a shortfall in funding. Flexible repayment timescale over 4 years or more. You must be able to demonstrate how you intend to repay the loan by providing a cash flow forecast for the first year and an outline for the next 3 years together with other supporting evidence. Acre need to be able to assess the risks in making the loan. Now, this is the next loan is not, it's not something I have experience of halls using, but I came across it and I think it looks very good. It's for energy saving work. And then if you're lucky enough to live within 20-mile radius of Blenheim Palace, they have a loan as well. There are other companies, the Charities Aid Foundation Bank give loans, and the Triodos, but I need to look into the terms of those. But a loan is a possible thing to help you with your project. So A to Z of fundraising. This is all about local fundraising. These days we've really got to help ourselves, and it's we have an A to Z of funding ideas that can be sent out. As we've said before, community fundraising goes a long way to show funders that your community is behind you. No amount is too small, and also other skills might be offered from the community while you're on this journey. So ideas from business support. Many companies allocate people's time, so may come and decorate your hall for you or other tasks. Pro bono support is available. Will a local business sponsor an event in return for advertising? You could offer to have their details of their business up in your hall, you know, for a week, or if you have several businesses sponsoring you. Yes, can they supply raffle items? they might offer reduced price equipment. You can also get funding from places like Screwfix or Morrison's Foundation. These are both on the, I've got a keeper funding sheet, which I can send out to you. It's mainly for capital projects. You might have to have one of these stores in your area, but not necessarily. And there are other stores that may support you. And these will be on the funding sheet as well. So identifying the right funder for your idea for improvement. Make sure, one of the big things that I've come across is that while you're deciding on and getting your quotes in, you need to make sure that you're within the minimum or maximum funding levels. So, for instance, the Platinum Jubilee Fund awards can be made to cover 20% of eligible costs within, so the lowest is 7,500 and the maximum amount of award is 75,000. So there'll be lots of funders have this minimum and maximum amounts. So while you're adjusting your project, make sure you're still within the parameters. We've mentioned about funding the required documentation already. Having a good relationship with the funder is a very positive thing. And if there is anything that you're not sure of, they really do encourage you to give them a ring. And this helps with the relationship, but also, no question is too silly, especially when you're spending all this time and effort in applying. So if there's something you're not quite sure whether you fit the criteria, the best thing to do is to ask. And they'll be very happy to help you because they want to support you, but wouldn't want you to be going down the wrong path. So, Lisa, I think we're...
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say, just recheck the eligibility criteria to make sure before you put any time or effort into a funding proposal that you've done that, and look at how you fit that organisation's objectives. Are you a good fit, not just for the fund, but really, what they're trying to achieve and what you're trying to achieve? Because, there are limited funding opportunities out there, but you want to make sure you're maximising what there is, because it takes a lot of time and energy. So, you've got to weigh up whether you've got the time, the capacity to apply. So make sure you're giving yourself the best possible opportunity. Part of that is doing your budget, and we have mentioned the Platinum Jubilee Fund, but it's a good example in terms of looking for capital costs. So when you're looking for money, there's normally two types: capital, which is for long-term resources such as buildings or equipment, or there's revenue funding, and that's generally more for community groups doing activities, and it will cover sort of venue hire, activity costs, maybe getting some staff time, if it's somebody specialist, that type of thing. But if you're a hall and you're applying for capital costs, this gives some sort of an overview of the types of costs that you might be looking at. And they've been very specific about what is and isn't eligible. So always really check that again and again. So they've provided a budget template. Sometimes funders will allow you to use your own, but here they're saying capital works are eligible, but not VAT that you can claim back. So, you just have to be wary of that. You can apply for broadband and Wi-Fi up to £1,000, but then if you look in the ineligible items, fees, so planning, building regs, legal costs, which all these things can be quite substantial. So, they're not going to cover those costs. Generally, donors will have like an FAQ sheet to say what is and isn't eligible. So just be very clear when you're doing a budget that your expenditure items fit what you can fund. This particular donor does require the 3 quotes, for capital works that generally is, and you'll be required to say where you've got the quotes from, and if you get the funding, which quote you would go for and why. So again, you need to be collecting that information and be very clear about why you're making that decision. And because they're a match funder, increasingly donors are, they like to see money coming in from lots of other areas because their funds are limited, so they want to match it up with other funds that you're fundraising. You might be asked to sort of provide that information. So what other fundraising have you done? We've sort of mentioned a few. It could be local donations or broader donations, gift aid reclaim, as Nicole mentioned, in-kind contributions. So they're really important, and normally you can cost those at the going rate. So if you're lucky enough to have an architect in your midst, for instance, and you can claim those costs, you could charge that, even if they're a volunteer, at what is an average rate. So you can look at those types of inputs into your fundraising. If you have any reserves, Section 106 money or SIL money, this is all fundraising and all helps you to show how you can better fund your project. So then really the donors are top up or 50%. In this case, it was an 80-20 split. So they really only wanted to provide the top up 20%. So that's a lot of additional fundraising to do. So, as soon as you can find these opportunities and look at this, then it gives you a better, clearer idea how much you've really got to fundraise. And thinking about sustainability, some donors require this, and it's a good thing to be planning anyway. So they may want a cash flow forecast, for instance, to show how you're going to keep the lights on, keep the hall going. They don't want to put money into a building that's going to close. So they want to know that you're looking ahead to the future. If you're looking for revenue costs and it's for an organisation, I've seen that too, people like the lottery, if they're giving you 3 years funding, they will want to see the amount that you're asking from them go down because they're hoping that you're going to become a bit more sustainable year on year. So, think forward planning, think cash flow forecast, and just check if that's needed in the grant that you're applying for. So, it's a lot of work, but I think it also helps you to be sustainable in the long term to do that forward planning. So then there's some key points to think of in bid writing. There is there's sort of a bit of a science to it, and I would say the overriding point, maybe those that have been successful can sort of say if they heard why they were successful. But I think, as somebody who's given out grants, you get inundated. You might have, say, like 120 applications. You want to very easily, quickly see that this particular application is ticking your boxes, that, there's alignment with what you're trying to achieve, and that people have answered all the questions really clearly. So I think that sort of pre-preparation and then trying to express yourself as concisely as possible, answering all the questions, making sure that you understand what the question's asking for you, because it's very tempting, and I do this myself, to ramble on, and then you get to the end and you say, did I actually answer that question that they were asking me? So always double check it, and, always get somebody to proofread. Try not to leave any gaps. If there's a question you're not sure about, again, go back to the donor. As somebody that gives out money sometimes, I would much rather somebody come and ask me 10 questions than spend a lot of time doing an application that I look at and then go, I can't fund it. You know, and that's how most donors are now moving towards. You know, I was at a session for modern grant making this week at OCF, Oxfordshire Community Foundation, and you know, everybody is moving more towards more conversational type of funding. Some, I don't know, you know, when we're talking capital funding, whether the capacity of that organisation, it will really depend on the size of the funds and the amount of staff they've got. But people can only say no, so please make sure you ask. And write in plain English. Another thing which is quite interesting is to use the language of the donor. So if you think about, you know, some of their key things might be community cohesion, say, or you know, supporting the most vulnerable in the community. Use that terminology when you're expressing, you know, your answer to those questions, because then it helps them to sift through and say, all right, yeah, that's what we're asking for in this question. That person has answered it. And I know it's really easy to cut and paste over lots of grant applications, and we all do it, but really try to make sure that you tailor your answers specifically to each bit, so that you give yourself the best chance. You know, again, go back to the question, are you answering the question? And inspire. You know I'm saying keep it simple, but also, you know, funders want to know the human story. So if there's a quote there or there's a story, if you've got enough words to express that about the impact or the need, you know, use that, make that connection to what you know about your community. And you can also demonstrate the extra benefits that you can provide. Is there something that will make you stand out from other people applying for funding? You know, have you got experience in this? Show that experience. Is this something that, you know, you might have somebody on your committee who's a complete expert in one particular area, or there's somebody in the community. You know, anything that you can do to make yourself stand out is really important. And include measurable outcomes. Again, it's what is the donor, the funder trying to achieve with their funds, and how can you show that you're going to do it? So with the Platinum Jubilee Fund, and you'll be looking at some of these, you know, one of the outcomes is demonstrating environmental benefits. So how are you going to do that? And how are you going to measure that? How are you going to prove that you can achieve that with the funding that they're going to give you? Yeah, evidence, as we've said, from the community and other sources is really key. And when you've got to the end, and it can seem like a lot of hard work, it is a lot of hard work, always get people to edit for you. Sometimes it's easier for somebody else to edit. Spell check, check, and check again. Make sure you've got all of the documentation. You know, a lot of funders will have a checkbox. Double check that you're including everything. You don't want to give the donor, the funder, a reason to easily throw your application out. And keep a copy and try to get it in before the end of the deadline, and try to learn. You know, even if you're not successful, try to find out why you haven't been successful. A lot of donors now will give you a little bit of feedback. If they don't, ask. They can only say no, because that all builds into your learning, that builds into your relationship building, because you might want to apply again to this particular fund or donor. So there's some sort of key points, and we'll just have a quick look at monitoring.
I was going to say, don't edit out your human element.
No.
It's nice. It's written in the way that you express yourself as well. That keeps the human element, of course.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, avoid jargon. Maybe when you're getting into technical stuff, that could be a danger. You know, just keep it simple. So, you know, most donors, most funders will look at evidence of success. So you need to be monitoring what you're doing and capturing evidence of progress and success throughout your project. Don't just do it at the end. Start at the beginning and think, you know, what are the key touch points? Or is there specific reporting that I need to feed back to the donor? When does that need to happen? Build it into your project plan. How can I simply get that evidence? It doesn't have to be rocket science. Look at what the funder is asking for and seeing if you can provide it. So you might want to be looking at different methods. There's quantitative and qualitative. A lot of donors will want some numbers, so it might be demographic data that you can get elsewhere. It might be numbers of people you've consulted or number of people that you know that are going to use the hall. But also, again, the human element. You know, as you're going along with your project, are there any stories? Are there any quotes? Or are there any photographs that you can provide in your reporting? If it's anonymous, it's fine. You don't need to worry about consent. But if you're taking pictures of people or actually quoting them by name, you would have to have their consent, and we can help with a consent form, a template if you're doing that. But, you know, what you're trying to do is provide a really good story of your project and actually show the difference that you're making or hoping to make, and keep the donor informed. If things don't go to plan, and they often don't, it's organic, tell the donor as soon as possible, because quite often they will be flexible. They may be able to talk you through doing things differently. Don't be frightened to say, and actually it's all good learning. So if you get to the end of your report and you know, some things didn't go right, what did you learn? What would you do differently? You know, it's all really useful. And I think donors are increasingly realistic these days. But, you know, obviously, if you've been given a lot of money and you're not going to spend it for another 6 months, you need to let them know, because it's all about building that relationship with your funder. And hopefully you can also invite them when the work's done, and help you celebrate. So yeah, donor relationship and keeping it simple. You know, as we talked about engagement, you can get evidence through just talking to people, doing a survey. What about the groups using your hall? Could you do a little focus group with people and sort of get their feedback about the improvements, that sort of thing? And I know we talked about communication, you know, and I think it was, I'm just trying to remember who it was it John, you were sort of saying about doing an exhibition and feedback? You know, do an exhibition, you know, show people what's happened, get their feedback from it. All great for reporting. Okay, so that's a whistle-stop tour through the funding.
Oh,
grant funding.
I was hoping we'd be at our exercise next, Lisa.
I know. We need
We're
to
not, are we?
crack on. We need to crack
Okay,
on.
right. I'm going to keep this short then. So I keep a capital funding sheet, which is available to download from our website, or you can email me for it. So I won't put many of the funding sources from there on here, but I've just mentioned some search engines from the OCVA, and Jamie there can help you with looking for funding. Other suggestions are the Directory of Social Change, Funding Finder. I believe they have a free sort of element to their search engines. And I know that Charity Excellence is totally free, but it takes a bit of getting used to. So you might need a few tries at that. I'm afraid the funding sheet that in the past, it's been gloriously sort of full of funding from local authorities for capital projects. At the moment, there isn't any, although the South Oxfordshire one only closed in July, and I haven't heard that they're not going to have any, but the other local authorities have gone over to sort of crowdfunding and lottery funding instead, which is the new direction, I'm afraid. So I just didn't have time here to sort of, some of the main funders on the sheet were the big lottery. So there are awards for all, that's ongoing funding, apply anytime. And this is an example. I've just put an example of what they're asking you. So it's to bring people together. I've just moved my slide without wanting to. Together to build relationships and access in and across communities, or improve the places and spaces that matter to communities. Of course, that could be a community building, so that's really good. So the funding wants to achieve either one or both of those outcomes. And then the reaching communities, which is a larger fund, to improve lives. Priority is for places that need it most, which is where your desktop search for, you know, indices of deprivation and that sort of thing that you could perhaps include. Places that are experiencing poverty, disadvantage, or discrimination, and to support people in the communities to shape the decisions that affect their lives. So you do, obviously this is where the, you know, the research and the community consultation really got to work out who you are supporting and see if it would fit this criteria. So other funding, Garfield Weston, if you're lucky enough to live near in landfill, I think within 10 miles, you can get landfill grants, and they're pretty sort of open to improving your space. I'm afraid the funding that we've mentioned, Platinum Jubilee Fund through DEFRA, is closed at the moment. We're still, we may have some money left over. We've just had a round, and you know, there might still be some money in the pot. So we'll let you know as soon as possible. And we're always, you know, want to hear about halls who need the funding, so that we can approach DEFRA and say, look, we have all these halls wanting funding. We need this fund to continue. And then there's the funding for the development in your community. Yes, the Community Infrastructure Levy Fund, or Section 106, but it's if you are having lots of new development in your community, you might be able to get that. And for some reason, it's not on the slide, but I think the Vale, I think, are producing a SIL fund, which communities can apply to improve their infrastructure. So that's another way of going about it. So you can apply for the SIL or 106 money through your parish council, but you can go directly to, I think it's the Vale. I shall make sure I've got the right details when I email you after this session. So we are now coming to an exercise where we're going to put you into breakout rooms to discuss just one of the business case example and outcome example of some successful bids that I sent you. So identify what you think makes them a good and appealing to funders. but you know, things can always be improved. So what do you think would make them better? And then if there's someone who wouldn't mind feeding back to the group. How are you doing, Lisa?
Yeah, well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed. So hopefully this makes sense. So group 1 will be Bruce, Elizabeth, Catherine, and if you could look at Hall 1 in the case studies that you've been given. Group 2, Nicole, Peter, Sue and Sarah, and looking at Hall 2. James and John in group 3, looking at Hall 3. And then I'm not quite sure why, but I think it's got something to do with the technology. But Susan, Brandon and Zoe, unfortunately, it won't assign you to a room. So, but what we can do is if you do Hall 4, and we'll just stay in the main room and can look at that together. And you've got 15 minutes. I'm hoping it gives you a warning before it chucks you out, but looking at it now, I think it's going to be about, what are we, 10 to, yeah, I think it might be a Teams upgrade. You're right there, Zoe. A few minutes, about 53 or something. So I'm going to press the magic button and keep my fingers crossed. Is everybody clear what you're doing? You're having a look at Hall 1, 2, 3 or 4 and just seeing what you think, basically. And we'll see you in 15 minutes. So hopefully this will happen as it should.
There's too many people, aren't there?
Well, we're not there yet. Here we are. We're going. We're off.
Oh, it looks like it's done what it should, so that's good. Right. So has anybody got Hall 4? It's the one I didn't print out because I didn't have.
Yes, I've got it here. Yes, I've got it. It's just not letting me share my screen. I don't know why. I don't have that ancient a version of Teams.
Oh, I can share my screen with it.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not allowing.
Let me just do it. I've got to go into my emails first, so don't look. Oh, I'm not sharing anyway at the moment.
I think you did share it with me as well, didn't you, Tessa?
Yeah. Here we are.
Only the meeting organizer can share.
It's all right. I'm sharing. Don't worry. Thank you for trying.
Oh, that's the point. Yeah, people in rooms won't be able to share, will they? Hopefully they're reading it. Do you want me to have a go, Tessa?
Well, it's just opening in its own time. We're on go slow. Oh, here we are. Right. So this is a church hall. Is that all right?
Getting there.
Yeah.
Can you both see?
Yeah, thank you.
Got success.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very lengthy. Would you like me to read out the business case?
Yeah, let's start with the business case.
Let's start at the top, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you know there is a need for your project? Have you carried out any community consultations specifically relating to your village or community hall and its needs and usage? E.g. survey or public meetings. Have your current regular users been involved in shaping this project? If so, how and when? Use the following space to tell us why your project is needed. Share with us details of any consultation, including dates, activities and results, and how the feedback from the consultation you have done helped to shape the project. And this is what they said. In 1995 or thereabouts, the community raised funds for the development of a small community room in partnership with the local education authority as an extension to the village school. This extension was leased to a new charity which operated in parallel with the parish council and administered the building. It was available for hire to be used for gatherings of up to 30 or 40 people. When the school expanded, the local education authority bought the community room for the school. This left the village with only the Methodist Hall as a meeting place. A subcommittee of the parochial church council was formed following a well-attended village meeting to start a course to chart a course forward for the use of the church and the Methodist chapel. Its aim was to find a way to meet the recognised need for a community building capable of being used for a variety of community activity attended by a substantial number of residents, given that the Methodist chapel could only hold 30 or 40 people. I think that's sort of repeated several times. It's small. The committee organised the committee organised a design brief that was needed as the foundation document for an architectural competition. A new committee was formed in 2015, which included 2 members of the church congregation and 2 from the non-church going community. This committee sought advice from interesting parties ranging from musicians, flower arrangers, and local bell ringing and art groups. This interaction allowed a flexible design to be created, which defined many capability improvements, among which were making the existing building as user-friendly as possible. This is the church space they're talking about now for any community group. Maintaining the seating capacity of the building, improving the entrances, flooring to allow unimpeded access for disabled users, future-proofing the structure and systems of the building into the foreseeable future, making the building accessible for both able-bodied and disabled users, and providing appropriate toilets. On completion of the design brief process, a village meeting was held to present the design to the village residents for their approval. While no vote was taken at that meeting, the opinions of the audience were mostly in favour of the design, the only disagreement of substance being a strong preference that the artistic and historical ethos of the building should not be changed. With that change, the PCC petitioned the Oxford Diocese for a faculty to allow the church to be modified in accordance with the design brief. This was granted in June 2017. The project now seeks to install a hot water system, hand washing facilities, a toilet, a kitchen, all of which are needed for it to be used as a community hub, create a single floor level to allow children, disabled and elderly users to move around easily and safely. Similar levelling is needed to make the footpaths in the churchyard safe. Remove the pew seating and replace it with stackable seating to allow the floor of the nave to be cleared for community events. Update the heating, lighting, sound, electrical systems to reduce the carbon footprint. Create a mezzanine to maintain seating capacity at the west end of the nave, below which a toilet and kitchen, an enclosed meeting room and an open meeting space at the first floor level can be built. Install a telephone and IT system, create much needed storage space. At every stage in the process, this project, village residents have been asked to comment, criticise and offer observations on the concept and design of the alterations to the building. So I haven't put what these included. So very thorough.
Yeah, so any thoughts on would you fund it?
I'm finding it a bit vague in places, but I do think it has the human element that you've talked about. It certainly ticks the boxes on accessibility, diversity, sustainability for the future, but also reducing carbon footprint and things like that. So there's lots of really good stuff in there, but it is a little bit vague, and I'd prefer some more specifics, I suppose. and for it to feel a little more organised and structured in the way that it's presented. But their community engagement sounds really strong. Again, there are no sort of numbers attached to it. It's just that it's a little bit sort of amorphous somehow.
Yeah.
What do you mean costs?
Costs, the numbers of people that they engage during the community outreach.
Yes, that did stand out, didn't it? That while no vote took place.
Yes, exactly. It's all just a bit
on the other hand, they were covering a multitude of sins, perhaps, and with that as well. You know, if they're not getting quite as many as they'd hoped for, but they felt that they still had the go-ahead, they weren't wanting to be too specific.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yes,
otherwise, I mean, Zoe's got it all there, really, from what she said.
Yeah, you'd make a great be great on a grant panel. Yeah, I mean, that was what stood out for me. It was like they didn't say how many people they'd engaged, and actually some donors really asked. But you could be right there, I think, in that, you know, they're trying to cover up not as many people joined as they really wanted to. Susan, yeah. So
it sounds very, very similar to what we're doing though.
Yes,
we have.
What are you doing?
Well, we have 3 different levels of floor in the hall. So wheelchair users can't get to the loos unless, well, no, they can't get to the loos at all, actually, unless you dig out this great big ramp that takes up most of the hall space. And there are issues, and it's due to the way the sewerage system is set up. So that's all on gravity going down to the mains, and so it's quite a shallow set of sewerage underneath the hall, which means the floors have had to be raised above it. So you can't get from the main hall that people would be in to the kitchen or the loos. I mean, yes, kitchen that's very old and outdated and not really very user friendly. Storage space that is, you know, it's difficult to get things in and out of. So the various groups struggle to get there, but it's just an effort to get their things out.
Right.
And then, yeah, we have a mezzanine floor that hosts the archive, but the stairs are so narrow and so steep that you wouldn't really want anybody to be clambering up and down them very regularly.
Oh dear. I think before we're thrown out of the oh, no, we're not in a room, are we?
No, the people will come back, so we can look at an outcome, maybe.
Should we look at the outcomes and then see what you think about that? Shall I read it again?
Is there a short one?
Yeah,
the first ones.
They're all quite short.
Yeah, go for it.
So please explain how your project will help address the overall health and well-being of people in your community, what social benefits your project will provide, how will your project help address loneliness? So rural isolation is a significant problem in this community, and many residents, particularly the elderly and those with mobility issues, hearing loss, etc., are affected by isolation and loneliness. This group can also include the parents of young families, home workers, and young people who are returning home from school, then find it difficult to travel out of the village to reach centres of sport and social activity. It is intended that the community facilities created by this project will provide a variety of activities for the elderly residents, including coffee mornings, lunch clubs, film nights, and musical events such as community singing. The new spaces will give mother and toddler groups a safe and warm place to meet informally with appropriate and hygienic toilet, baby changing, and food, drink preparation areas for mother and child. All of these facilities will also be available for the general population of the village.
Okay, what's thoughts? So it's all about health and well-being, social benefits, addressing loneliness.
I think there's lots of good things, but again, you might want some numbers in there.
Yeah, and maybe a quote or two.
Yeah.
You know, just to bring it to life so that it's the evidence of saying, that this person has got issues, connecting, because their mobility is not so good.
Yes, that's making it a lot more personal, isn't it?
Mm.
The overall, I can see that. We haven't even got to even considering all this yet. It's so early. This is my problem. I'm sort of floundering a bit because we are very, very much into the fact that we've now got, according to the Vale, we should be okay to go ahead after all the problems we've had. And now we can, we've got this 90-year-old building that literally is falling down. We've got asbestos on the roof, which is fine. The tiles are fine as long as they're not broken, but we've got all that, problems. And it's basically, it's a shed. It's a wooden shed, not proper foundations, a lot of it. So we are beginning now, right at the early stages, so we haven't really sat down to do all this just yet.
Well, you can see from this how important it is to consult and to have numbers and to have quotes,
Yeah.
Nothing like bringing that element to it, and then, and to help you, because if you are not sure who's going to be behind you yet, then by doing this exercise early, you'll know whether or not it's worth going for the whole
I think it's really helpful, actually, just, going through this and setting it down. And I think between us, there were other people, actually, who were hoping to come from Dedgeworth to be here tonight. So I don't know what's happened to them. But
I'm very happy to come out and see you.
Anyway, that's kind. Thank you, Tess.
Yeah.
Just going back to that outcome, I think also what it did, which was quite good, is show the different groups in the community. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The other people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, we were having a lovely chat.
Yeah, they've turned our camera off. I think they're putting us back in the group now.
Do we have? They're all closed now. Yeah. Hopefully we're all back in the room. And we haven't lost anyone along the way.
One person. Maybe they've said that they're going. We've got 11 people now.
Okay. Great. Well, can anybody from group, how did you find that? Did it work? We've not done this online before, looking at your case studies on an email and then discussing it. Was that okay? Did it work? Was it awkward?
No, it's good.
Yeah, it was all right. It's workable. So group 1, hall 1, which is Bruce, Elizabeth, Catherine. What was good and bad, did you think, about your proposal as far as you got with it?
I must say we had a very good conversation between the three of us. We've learned a lot about what we're doing, what we haven't done, and then we eventually got on to looking at hall 1. So in the
that's fine. It's all part of the joy, Bruce.
I think, I don't know if anyone else to speak, but I think it was some of the stats that were quoted in there. They talk about 99.5% strongly agree. And that obviously is based on some survey. They didn't say what the survey return was. So if it was like a 5% return, then it could be almost insignificant. That sort of struck us, and also the purpose of why they were doing it. And we assume it was based from the outcome one. Because again, another stat, 32% of the people are over 60, so we assume it's to do with targeting that particular group, becoming inclusive towards them. And I'm not sure if we didn't get much further than that, unfortunately.
No, that's fine. I mean, what that sounds like, and we picked up a bit on this, I mean, they've used stats, but actually without framing what the survey was and how many people returned. How powerful is that? you know, so it's making everything really clear. And it's great they've done some community consultation, but it could be made more meaningful. I think that's what I'm taking from you. And you were saying assuming, we assume something. What you want to do is take the assumption out of a grant proposal, so to make sure that it's very clear what you mean, so that the person looking at your grant application isn't having to assume anything. It's very tough because normally you don't have many words. But that's great. Thank you so much for that. And I hope your other discussion was really useful, because this is part of just, getting people connected. So group 2, hall 2, we had Nicole.
I just want to say that it's nearly 9 o'clock, just in case anybody has anything that they had planned after this, but we're happy to stay on and to hear what your thoughts are.
Just for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
We'll speed through. So if you could just pull out one or two things. It was Nicole, Peter, Sue and Sarah in group 2.
Yeah, so we thought the good things that they did was that they had obviously done a good consultation. They'd referred to lots of the different groups that they had consulted with. We thought the first part, the business case, was quite good, and the fact they referred to loneliness and isolation and lack of public transport, which probably chimed quite well with the grant givers' criteria, their desires.
Bus service.
Improvements, we thought they could be more concise. We felt it was very wordy. It was quite difficult to make your way through. It could have been formatted better, like the number 1. We did look at that very briefly, that it's got bullet points and it just looks a bit clearer. And they perhaps needed, was this right, Peter? You said more specific examples, be quantitative. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so we looked at number 1, it got more of the numbers, which we just said weren't really qualified in any way, but number 2 didn't have anything like that at all. Something more positive.
Great. So yeah, I think numbers, evidence, like you're saying, to qualify, Peter, I think, yeah, that's all really helpful. And you picked up on formatting. Yeah, anything you can do to make it clearer, bullet points, short sentences, short paragraphs are all really useful. And more concise. You're either somebody who can write concisely or you can't. I can't. So I'm rubbish at writing grant applications. I have to get somebody else to tell me what to cut. And that's fine. If you've got somebody in your group that can do that and check it, all the better. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much. So group 3, James and John, and hall 3. James and John, if you found any comments.
John here. Can you actually hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes. What's changed?
Well, it's disappeared from my screen. I've got a screen up that just says meeting is just one tool in our belt. So I don't know what's happened. Anyway.
Excellent.
We thought that the bid was quite imaginative in some places. They'd obviously worked quite hard to fulfill as many of the points that they thought would be appealing to the funder, and I thought that was a good element, and also that the layout was quite good. Again, they used bullet points and so on in quite a lot of the places, and they also added at the end some extra information which explained how they'd had to spend money over recent times, which is why they hadn't got a lot of capital themselves now and needed grant assistance, which I think is quite a useful thing to do if you are actually in that position.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So I like that comment, work hard to meet all the points. You know, I think that's really important. The more you can align yourself with the question that you're being asked or the aims of the fund, the better, you know, because people will go through and mark and look to see if they can tally up with what you're saying with what they're asking for. So that's great. And then the last group was Zoe and Susan, and we were sat in there as well. I don't know, Zoe or Susan, whether you could just quickly overview.
Yeah, I can kick off.
Yeah, you were very good, Zoe.
Yeah, so I mean, this one definitely capturing the human element, but rather conversational in its approach. Lots of community engagement done, but no numbers included, wasn't quantified at all really, and a very unstructured approach to what they were doing. It sort of left us wondering if they were covering up for actually low engagement numbers because they were just rambling on without quantifying any of it. So then when we were looking at outcomes, again, just more numbers needed, more quantifying of what they were doing, what they'd achieved. There were some good things in there in terms of how the project addresses quite a wide demographic across the community. So that certainly worked, but very little in the way of substantiated evidence and quotes. So that was definitely needed in there. That was it, I think.
Yeah, great. So I think, yeah, we definitely felt a lack of numbers and a quote. So you can say things, but who said that? Where's the evidence? You know, so I think that's really useful. You might find with some funds that you can actually look at past funding applications. They might have them on their website. If that's there, always good to look at it. Because these have all been funded, by the way, by is it the Platinum Jubilee Fund, Tessa?
No, there's only one
Different
Platinum
funds.
Jubilee
Okay.
Fund, but the others are the Village Hall Improvement Grant Fund, which is an older fund.
So, you know, they've been successful, but there's still room for improvement. And
they are asked to show, even if it's not expressed in the application form, they are asked to show evidence of consultation. So the person supporting them with the bid, you know, has to have a summary sheet and said, yes, they've, you know, seen evidence of these consultations. So that helps as well.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we're there.